That was a mistake. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm playing with this Smashbox Cali Contour palette. And so this is a face palette from Smashbox. It retails for $39 original price, and it includes one contour, a bronzer, two highlights, a matte face powder, as well as a matte blush. And these tones are like really neutral and they look just so stunning to me. And so I've actually had this palette in my collection for a little bit. I kind of have this thing where I will reserve some makeup that I feel like I don't need at the moment and just kind of hold on to it until a time that I get bored of my makeup and then I want to try something new. And when I feel that way, I have something already kind of waiting to be used. Does anyone else do that? Is that just a me thing? Recently, I just saw It's Just Steph here on YouTube. She's one of my YouTube friends. I'll link her channel below. Talk about this in one of her like kind of favorites videos and how she didn't expect to love this as much as she does, and she would fully replace this at full price if it ever went away. And so watching that kind of inspired me to finally whip this out. These look swatched because I did swatch them. These swatches are in order across the top row and then across the bottom row. First with the contour shade, the lighter highlight shade, the bronzer, the powder, the deeper shimmer highlight, and the matte blush. This palette retails for $39, but you hardly ever have to pay that price. Either you can get it at like a VIB sale, or a lot of times in Ulta's 21 Days of Beauty, this will also pop up in one of those specials that is half off. Today, I'm going to be using every shade of this either on my face or on my eyes. And playing with this palette, I'm also going to play around with these three Alamar brushes. These were included in a BoxyCharm a couple months ago, but I actually got these from True Watts. She also has a YouTube channel. I'll link her down in my description box. And I actually won these in a little giveaway of hers, and so I'm excited to try these out. I've heard really good things and they're like super soft. One thing that I do already appreciate about this palette is, of course, the mirror, but also the size of it. It's small enough to fit in the palm of my hand. It's actually the same size as one of ColourPop's little 12-pan eyeshadow palettes. I hate it when my palettes are like really bulky. I prefer to have small handheld palettes over larger ones. That goes in terms of eyeshadow palettes or face palettes. Before I go in with these powders on my face, I will actually do some hand swatches to show y'all a little bit more of a concentrated swatch of what the true tone of each of these are. First is the contour shade. Here's that contour. Here is the lighter highlight, which is the one that is going to work on my skin. And it has a little bit of a pinkness, like a nude pinky tone to it. It's not just a straight champagne. Third is the bronzer. You see it's a little more tan and warm than the contour, which is more gray. Now for the powder, this is actually has a little bit of a pigment to it. It doesn't seem to be completely translucent. This is the second shimmer powder, which seems like it would be a good highlight for people with deeper skin tones, and just a wonderful lid shade on my eyes, which is how I'll use it today. And the last powder is this blush. I'll swatch it across the top because I ran out of room. And it is just a very neutral leaning blush, which is my favorite kind of blush. I love blushes that look very boring because I find that they look the most natural and the most flattering on the face. I love a really bronze blush, like a blush that almost looks like a bronzer. Okay, let's get started. The first powder I'm going to go in is this setting powder. It's been a couple hours or a few hours since I put on my makeup, so some of my oils are coming through now. So let's see how this works to touch up. It's a little powdery, if you can see. So I'll just do my T-zone as well as under my eyes, or on top of my eyes pretty much. So that seemed to work okay. I feel like maybe this is a better under eye setting powder rather than a whole like face setting powder, because it looks a little bit powdery in between my eyebrows. Like you could tell there's powder there, but under the eyes it looks fine. So now into the actual sculpting and shaping of the face, I'm going to take this contour brush and dip into this contour and just going to, oh wow, that's super pigmented. All right, I'm not gonna dip back in and just put the rest of the powder on this side. One more dip, and I'm gonna put that all across my jawline, and then just blend that in. Do I look sculpted? You know what, I actually really like that. I don't actually contour that much. I hardly ever do. I usually just go in with bronzer to do some very soft shaping of my face. But what I'm actually going to go and do is just lightly dip this again and contour just this part of my face between my eyebrows and my nose. This brush is way too big for that, as you can see. So I'm gonna go in, just put some powder on here, and then blend that out with an eyeshadow brush or with my fingers because that was a mistake. Okay, there's my nose contour. It looks a little bit janky, but for the purpose of testing out this palette for the things it does, I keep on doing things that I don't typically do. But honestly, it looks fine to me. I pretty much just defined the middle of my nose bridge here. I didn't do a lot of like skinnying the tip of my nose because I feel like that really doesn't look that natural. I'm also gonna take some of this contour shade and contour my lower lash line with it. So just add shadow right underneath where I naturally have a little bit of shadow. I'm going to keep on adding to that eye look as we go. Next, let's go in with that bronzer, and for that I'll be using the Alamar bronzer brush that I just got and dip that in. Again, see the powder kick up, and just light-handedly pat that over that contour a little bit higher onto my cheekbone. And then also along the jawline and down the neck. Okay, now I'm going to go in and take some time to blend that in, trying hard to be careful not to drag it too far down. And then just drag this brush across my nose. So here's that bronzer, and this little patch of darkness here, that is actually my skin discoloration. That's not bronzer. On a fluffy crease brush, I'm going to take that bronzer shade and dust that across my lid and crease as a base. The tone of this bronzer is actually very interesting. It's not exactly warm in terms of like orange, but it has warmth in, I think, like with a little bit of pinkiness maybe. It looks more like a skin tone that has a little bit of blood, like red blood in my face. So you can see what I'm saying. It's hard to see when you're just looking at one pan, but here I actually have my pan of Hoola bronzer that I've depotted, and I'm just going to stick it on the magnet here. I feel like the Hoola bronzer is a relatively neutral bronzer, and this is this palette's bronzer in comparison to it. So here you can really see that the Smashbox bronzer has a little bit more pink in it, which I think melds really well into people's natural skin. On my eyes, you can really see some of the pink in that bronzer, and I think it looks really natural. I'm actually I actually like that. It's I didn't think that I would like that. Next natural step is blush, so I'm just gonna use my complexion brush from Alamar and dip into that blush shade, and then first pat on my cheeks and then blend it out. These powders are very pigmented, like you can clearly see where I put that, so maybe I need to use a little bit of a lighter hand in the future when I'm playing with this palette, but for the purpose of this video and for a demonstration, it's good that you can see the true tones of these shades. And then also across the nose, like always. So there's that blush, very neutral, and these three tones so far blend like really well. Here's a cool contour with a little bit of gray, and then a little bit more warmth with a little bit more pink, which blends into this very neutral pink blush, which blends into this brighter, very nude highlight that is a combination of champagne, pink, and nude. Yeah, so let's see how that looks. Let's dip into this highlight. But before that, let me put some of this blush on my eyes, kind of in the same area that I put that bronzer, maybe just a little bit lower than my crease. So there's that. As I'm looking at my face like super close up, this powder is not doing anything to like blur or conceal my pores. They're like out to play today. If you can see my pores in the fronts of my cheekbones. For highlighter, I'm taking this brightening brush and I'm gonna dip into this top shade, which is more for my skin tone. And I actually picked up quite a bit on that brush, so I'm gonna share this between my two cheeks. So a little pat pat, and then pat pat, and then blend that on both sides. Then also kind of sweep that into my brow bone, I mean. And then to blend that in, I'm gonna go in with the blush brush again, no extra product, and just kind of pat over that highlighter. This highlight is my skin tone, so it's just on the cusp of being too dark for me. If you are fairer than me, then this highlight is going to be too deep and it will show a shadow on you. On me, I think it is passable, especially because it blends into this blush tone so well. I'm going to take some of this on my pinky and dot it on my inner corners. And that's not like a very potent highlight because the tone of it is not a much brighter than my skin tone, but it is a very natural like brightness. It brings a natural brightness to my eyes. So when shopping for face palettes like this, you have to be like smart about it. I look at this and can see that this would suit my skin tone very well. I think that this will work super great on arbitrarily picking a range of like NC 15 up to NC 40 maybe. Yeah. Because I haven't used this tone yet on my face, I'm going to take that on my ring finger and sweep that across my lids. Okay, and just to define the shape of my eyes a little bit more, I'm going to take this kind of fat, flat buffer brush and dip into the contour and outline my eyes with that. And then I'm going to take, lastly, just a little bit more of that highlight shade and run it across my lower lash line to my pupil. So I just popped on some mascara, so I'll take out my clips. And here is my final look using that palette on my face and my eyes. So how do I look? I feel very naturally pretty, and I think that is the vibe and result that I'm gonna get when I use this palette, and I really like it. I expected to like it. I didn't really come into this expecting not to like this palette. So if there are two shades that I'm gonna use the least, it is going to be the powder and this deeper shimmer. Just because this is not for my skin tone, this powder, I feel like I'm going to just use my Rimmel Stay Matte powder. It works well for the under eyes because it has some pigment and it will brighten, but I didn't like exactly how it looked in my T-zone. This little L of powders, this Tetris piece of these four, it actually kind of does make me feel like I've been shaped by the sun. It looks very natural. It doesn't look very makeup-y. I expect that I'm actually going to use this a lot this winter because it's not like a winter palette, but I'm just going to be going on a lot of interviews across different cities in November, December, January time for residencies. And so I actually definitely plan on packing this in my travel bag because this is a good travel face palette if I've ever seen one, and it works on my eyes too. I think this is a very interview appropriate look, a work appropriate, interview appropriate look. That's really all I have to say about this. I like it, I expected to like it, and it kind of did what I expected it to because I know what these tones look like on my skin tone. And I hope this was helpful in seeing what all the shades look like on skin and on the face. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already joined my small family, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I hope y'all have a great day. I'm happy if I could entertain you for a few moments today. Remember that y'all are my treasure. Find the beauty in every day. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.